Yesterday, Changpeng Zhao, the CEO of Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange, floated the idea that they're actually looking for a potential replacement for him, and ideally somebody with a strong regulatory background. This comes amid a kind of roiling sea of regulatory scrutiny that Binance is going through. And, on top of this news, there was also news yesterday that Binance was going to lower its withdrawals that were allowed on a daily basis from 2 Bitcoin to 0.06 Bitcoin for accounts that had only passed a basic verification. So that is a large decrease. And this is a whole slew of information and rapid developments happening as regulators are looking more closely at crypto. But Naomi, I want to get your initial thoughts on this one.
I think that it's super interesting how regulated they're going now, because Binance has always been kind of the go-to for people around the world. We know that a lot of people use VPNs to access it because it's great. It really has, the most assets on there, and it's a lot of liquidity, and it's, very trustworthy. They've done a great job protecting consumer funds, and they've seemed to have gotten away with a lot. But ever since they launched their stocks that are tokenized, it seems that regulators are just like, no, that is one step too far and are cracking down. And now they seem to be doing this 180 where they're completely pivoting and saying, okay, let's, instead of, being jurisdictionless and being all around the world, we're going to have jurisdictions everywhere and be completely regulated in those places. So that's super interesting. At the start of the month, we heard from the UK that they're looking for, the UK version of Brian Brooks. So someone who has an ex-regulator background and can help maybe push them further towards this regulated path. So it does seem that now they're looking for this global Brian Brooks for Binance. So we're just going to have new Brian Brookses populated all over the place. So it's just a very interesting path that they're taking there. But Zach, I'll throw to you. What are your thoughts on all this?
I don't know, man. It's really interesting to see this Binance thing unfold the way it has. They are certainly trying to get their house in order, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if they can do that while still appealing to their customer base in a way that has brought them to the point where they are as the largest crypto exchange by volume in the world. So whether those two things are mutually exclusive, regulatory compliance and addictive, sticky, great user experience, we're going to have to wait and see. But it's really interesting to see this this discussion ramp up to the point where CZ is out there saying, hey, I'm happy to step down. I'm happy to take the bullet on this one if I can find someone a little bit more buttoned up to run this big global behemoth. So super interesting. These remarks came at a press conference. CoinDesk was there. A bunch of other outlets were there. Clearly they're trying to get this message out there that, hey, global regulators, we hear you. We're taking you seriously. Be our friends again. So it's interesting to see this happen the way it did. I think it was Jen. Did you have something to say, or because I saw Will do it too? But I'll toss it to Jen for.
I did. So I'll go very quickly, and then I'll toss it off to Will. First, I don't think I've mentioned on the show that CZ is Canadian. Chinese Canadian.
Oh, my goodness.
I knew that was coming.
Oh my goodness.
Another topic. That's on you, Zach.
Wow.
This is on you.
That's my bad.
And I just want to say it takes a really aware CEO to recognize when there are external and internal factors that are preventing them from doing the job that they set out to do. And so I applaud CZ for having that awareness. And I mean, everything that Binance has done has always had their end user at the forefront, right? And so I think complying with regulators is just going to make that better user experience for people who are on the platform. It was surprising to me, though, when I was reading this article, to hear that they said that regulators may not understand what they are doing. So they are going to take a more traditional structure so that regulators can understand who they are and what they do, which is kind of sad. It's like I've said this before, we're taking a few steps forward and a few back, but hopefully this will put them in a good position to reach some of the goals that they set out for the future. But Will, I will kick it off to you to take us to the end of this segment.
Yeah, two things are really interesting to me here before I throw it over to Naomi for closing thoughts. BitMEX, this happened to them basically last year. We already saw that they tried to do some things. They tried to kowtow to regulators. They started adding KYC to the platform. They started limiting some options on the platform. Didn't matter. October of last year, bunch of stuff went out the door for them. Arthur Hayes had to, I don't know if he's in prison right now or in jail right now. At least he's on a bail. So I think this story has already been played out before, and we can look to that as an example of what could happen for Binance. That's like worst case scenario. Another interesting thing about this is that the US is like leading all this. We always talk about like G7 and G20 nations that are involved in kind of deciding where global financial regulations go. But the US is only becoming interested in this right now. We saw that yesterday on Capitol Hill, talking with Elizabeth Warren, her calling everyone in crypto shadowy coders and miners. Pretty hysterical from one perspective, but also pretty terrifying, the fact that they don't understand this. And now they're going after Binance, top dog in the market, and really trying to shut it down. So interesting to see the US kind of taking all the actions, and then all these other countries are following up, like Japan and the UK and Thailand, who have already issued warnings against Binance.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Will. And I'll add on to that. The long arm of the US law reaches far and wide. As we know, Binance is not available to US residents, to US citizens. They block the IP addresses, and yet America is, apparently going after them. I mean, we've, as you said, seen how this played out with BitMEX, and it's kind of crazy and shocking to me that the world condones this. But I will say that hopefully, this furthers the push towards decentralized exchanges. It's very clear that all of these exchanges eventually have to kowtow, and so I'm very optimistic about the future of permissionless systems, because that really is the future of cryptocurrency.